There's a reason World War II veterans talked about survival like it was an art form. On the front lines, danger didn't always come with the sound of gunfire. Sometimes it sat quietly in a canteen, soaked into food rations, or drifted in the air long before anyone realized something was wrong. And here's the part most people never hear about. Long before high-tech detectors existed, soldiers were already using shockingly simple, brilliantly improvised tricks to spot poison and chemical threats. These hacks weren't taught in school, they were learned out of sheer necessity. And today, weirdly enough, many of them are still incredibly relevant. Old-school soldiers read their water like a map. Water wasn't just scarce in many World War II theaters, it was risky. Soldiers knew enemy forces could contaminate wells or streams, so they learned to read water with almost detective-level intuition. One of the first clues they watched for was surface behavior. If water formed an oily rainbow sheen or smelled even slightly off, it was immediately suspect. But here's the clever part, they didn't trust only their eyes, they'd drop a small pebble or stick into the water. If the surface tension reacted strangely, too slick, too slow, or breaking apart in unnatural patterns, they knew something chemical was at play. It was low-tech, but incredibly effective when modern gear wasn't available. The taste test that wasn't really a taste test. On desperate days, troops sometimes had to test questionable water with what looked like bravery, but was actually technique. They didn't drink it, they touched just a tiny bit to the tip of the tongue, not enough to swallow, just enough to detect bitterness or a burning sensation. Most poisons used during the war had a distinct chemical bite, and soldiers quickly learned that anything that tasted harsh or metallic spelled danger. It sounds insane today, but to them it was controlled risk, not reckless behavior. And surprisingly, this micro-taste method saved lives, especially in remote campaigns where clean water was a luxury. Animals were silent warning systems. This one feels straight out of ancient history, but World War II soldiers brought the practice into the modern era. If a camp dog refused to drink from a puddle or acted agitated near a certain area, troops took it seriously. Birds suddenly missing from a region were another quiet clue that something toxic lingered in the environment. Units fighting in jungle environments like the Pacific often watched how local wildlife behaved before moving in. Nature gave fast, instinctive warnings that no soldier wanted to ignore. Food poisoning wasn't always natural. Sometimes it was the result of deliberate sabotage. Soldiers, developed a clever method using nothing more than a metal spoon. If they suspected something was off, they'd dip the spoon into the food and heat it over a flame. Certain chemical poisons caused discoloration, darkening, or a strange odor when heated. It wasn't perfect science, but it drastically improved the odds of catching tainted rations. What's wild is that modern survival experts still teach a version of this trick because it can reveal chemical reactions that the eyes alone can't detect. Troops had to face not just ingestion poisons, but airborne threats. Before chemical detection kits were widely distributed, soldiers invented their own quick reaction tests. One method involved rubbing a bit of soap mixed with water onto exposed skin. If the skin tingled or burned more than usual, it could indicate the presence of acidic chemical agents. Another involved rubbing a small bit of soil on the forearm. Certain nerve agents caused instant irritation. These weren't perfect systems, but when seconds mattered, even crude detection could mean survival. Fire became an unexpected ally. Troops learned that certain toxic substances release specific colors or smells when burned. If they found suspicious powder near equipment or food, they'd toss a tiny amount into a flame. If the fire flared green, blue, or produced a sharp chemical odor, that was a hard stop. This wasn't part of official manuals early in the war. This was frontline ingenuity shared from soldier to soldier. With all the tech we have now, you'd think these hacks would be irrelevant, but the truth is, in disasters, survival situations, or remote travel, high-tech gear isn't always available. Many modern survival instructors still borrow from WWII fieldcraft because these techniques rely only on awareness, observation, and a bit of chemistry you can do without tools. Clean water scarcity, intentional contamination, and environmental toxins remain global problems. If your phone dies, your gear fails, or you're stuck somewhere unexpected, the same instincts that saved troops 80 years ago can still help you stay alive. Even more importantly, these tricks remind us that survival isn't only about equipment, it's about mindset. WWII soldiers knew they couldn't afford to be passive. They were constantly observing, testing, smelling, listening, watching the smallest environmental changes. They lived by the rule that danger rarely announces itself, but it always leaves clues. At the Forgotten War fronts, we talk a lot about strategy and battle tactics, but this is the kind of detail that reveals the real human side of wartime survival. These detection hacks show how soldiers weren't just fighters, they were problem solvers, chemists, observers, and improvisers. They weren't waiting for orders or fancy tools, they were adapting on the fly because their lives depended on it. What these methods still teach us is that knowledge, basic, practical knowledge, is sometimes the most powerful tool you can carry. Whether you're hiking, traveling, or just curious about how people got through some of the most dangerous moments in history, these WWII survival techniques are reminders of just how sharp human instinct can be. If you love learning the hidden techniques, forgotten tactics, and real-life secrets from the world's toughest battlefields, make sure you subscribe to the Forgotten War Fronts and share this video with someone who loves history as much as you do.